The US-Japan auto trade relationship was upended during President Trump's second term, marking a dramatic shift in decades of economic cooperation between the two countries. For years, Japanese automakers had enjoyed strong sales in the American market, fueling a steady flow of vehicles across the Pacific and helping Japan maintain a significant trade advantage. Trump zeroed in on Japan's $70 billion trade surplus with the US, arguing that the imbalance was unfair and unsustainable. He claimed that American workers and manufacturers were losing out, and that something had to change to level the playing field. The administration threatened a dramatic 27.5% tariff on all imported Japanese cars, up from the long-standing 2.5%, sending shockwaves through both countries' auto industries. The proposed tariff was not just a negotiating tactic, it was a clear signal that the status quo would no longer be tolerated. For Japanese automakers like Toyota and Honda, who'd invested billions in US factories and created thousands of American jobs, this move threatened their entire business model. Years of careful planning and partnership suddenly seemed at risk. Trump's strategy was clear: maximum pressure to force Japan into major concessions, all under the banner of America First. He was determined to show his supporters that he would fight for American interests no matter the cost. The looming tariff left automakers and suppliers in limbo, unable to plan for the future as the industry braced for a high-stakes showdown. Uncertainty rippled through boardrooms and factory floors alike, with everyone wondering what the next move would be. The stage was set for a pivotal confrontation that would reshape the global auto industry, with consequences that would be felt far beyond the borders of the US and Japan. After months of tense negotiations, a breakthrough finally emerged between two of the world's largest economies. The stakes were high, with both sides under intense pressure from their domestic industries and political bases. The world watched closely as the talks dragged on, with markets reacting to every rumor and headline. On September 4, 2025, President Trump and Prime Minister Ishiba stood side by side to announce a new trade deal that would reshape the economic relationship between the United States and Japan. The agreement was hailed as a turning point after years of uncertainty. The compromise settled on a 15% tariff for Japanese auto imports, significantly lower than the threatened 27.5%, but still a substantial increase from the previous 2.5%. This move was seen as a relief for Japanese automakers, who had feared much harsher penalties, but it also signaled a new era of tougher trade enforcement. The new rate, retroactive to August, provided long-awaited clarity for automakers and suppliers on both sides of the Pacific. With the uncertainty finally lifted, companies could plan for the future, invest in new technologies, and adjust their supply chains accordingly. In return, Japan committed to investing $550 billion in the US by 2029, focusing on critical sectors like semiconductors, advanced metals, energy, and next-generation robotics. These investments are expected to create thousands of jobs and strengthen technological ties between the two nations. Japan also agreed to boost US agricultural imports by $8 billion annually, including a 75% increase in American rice purchases. This was a major win for American farmers, who had been seeking greater access to the Japanese market for years. The deal also included significant purchases of Boeing aircraft and US defense equipment, expanding the agreement beyond trade and into strategic cooperation. This move was seen as a signal of deepening trust and partnership between the two allies. Both sides claimed victory, the US for securing tougher terms and protecting key industries, and Japan for averting a trade war and ensuring continued access to the American market. The mood was one of cautious optimism. The new rules would ripple across industries, not just autos. From technology to agriculture, and from manufacturing to energy, the 2025 US-Japan trade agreement marked the beginning of a new chapter in global commerce, one that will shape economic ties for years to come. Japanese automakers breathed a cautious sigh of relief. 15% was tough, but survivable. Toyota highlighted that 80% of its US sales are built in North America, shielding most of its lineup from the new tariff. Still, the remaining imports, often niche models, would see costs rise, forcing tough decisions on pricing and production. The real pain hit suppliers. Only 40% could pass on tariff costs to automakers, leaving most to absorb the financial blow. Many smaller suppliers, already operating on thin margins, now faced existential threats. The industry's hierarchical structure left suppliers with little leverage, risking business failures and parts shortages. The new trade reality exposed vulnerabilities throughout the supply chain. Despite new tariffs, Japanese automakers aren't leaving America. They're doubling down. Decades of investment have woven Toyota, Honda, and others into the fabric of U.S. manufacturing, with sprawling plants and R&D centers across the country. These facilities employ tens of thousands directly and support hundreds of thousands more through suppliers. Building where they sell has shielded them from the worst of protectionist policies. Now the focus is on deepening their American roots, expanding local production to further insulate against trade volatility. The challenge evolved from Japanese companies in America to truly American manufacturers. Their future depends on how well they adapt and localize in this new era. The 15% tariff hit not just cars, but thousands of imported parts, from the smallest screws to complex electronic modules. This squeeze is felt most by small and mid-sized suppliers, who are hit the hardest by rising costs and uncertainty. Many lack the power to pass costs up the chain, leaving them with few options to stay afloat. This erodes already thin profits and threatens the very survival of these businesses. Ongoing supply chain disruptions, like semiconductor shortages and U.S.-China trade tensions, only compound the crisis further. A single missing part can halt billion-dollar assembly lines, causing costly delays and production stoppages. These disruptions expose the fragility of just-in-time manufacturing systems worldwide. Suppliers face delays from rare earth metal shortages and shipment suspensions, highlighting global interdependence and risk. The industry is now forced to rethink its reliance on distant single-source suppliers for critical components. The supply chain squeeze is now an existential threat to the entire auto sector, demanding urgent solutions. Japanese automakers and suppliers are adapting fast. The 15% tariff is accelerating the shift to local production. If it can be built in the U.S., it will be. Bridgestone is expanding U.S. tire output by 2 million units by 2027. Others are finding creative ways to cut tariff costs. Automakers are focusing U.S. plants on high-volume models, while niche imports may see higher prices. The industry is also diversifying suppliers and building redundancy to guard against future shocks. Technology is being used to track parts and anticipate bottlenecks. The just-in-time model is giving way to just-in-case resilience. Survival now depends on flexibility and local integration. The 2013 States, Konbadistam 25 and Sime, brought a measure of clarity to the global auto industry, but it also introduced a fresh wave of uncertainty, especially in Japan, where the political fallout was swift and intense. Prime Minister Ishiba's leadership now faces its toughest test yet, as critics from both inside and outside his party question the wisdom of the agreement and its long-term impact on Japan's economy. Domestic critics have been especially vocal, decrying the government's concessions on agriculture as a betrayal of rural communities. Many fear that a change in government could unravel the deal entirely, leaving Japan's economic future hanging in the balance. Meanwhile, South Korean automakers are left in limbo, anxiously awaiting their own tariff resolution. This ongoing uncertainty creates a competitive imbalance in the region, as companies struggle to plan for the future. For Japanese brands, the 15% tariff is now a reality, one that is unlikely to disappear soon. As a result, even more production and supply chains are being shifted into North America, fundamentally changing the way Japanese automakers operate. Expect to see more U.S. plant expansions, new investments in American manufacturing, and a growing share of Japanese cars proudly bearing the Made in America label. The US-Japan auto bond is being reshaped, not broken. Japanese cars will remain a fixture on American roads, continuing to earn the trust of American families for years to come. In this new era, companies will double down on resilience, risk management, and boosting domestic production to weather future storms. The road ahead is uncertain, but Japanese automakers remain deeply committed to the American market, determined to adapt and thrive no matter what challenges lie ahead.